I've never told anyone what happened that summer at St. Ignatius Retreat. After 20 years of silence, I'm not sure if writing this will bring me peace or damn me further. But the visions have returned, stronger than before, and I need anyone, to understand what I witnessed. It began with static. As the newly appointed caretaker of the century-old monastery-turned-spiritual retreat, I was accustomed to the quirks of aging infrastructure, the flickering lights, the temperamental plumbing, the way the stone walls seemed to breathe in the summer heat. But the static was new. It emerged from every electronic device, radios, televisions, even my cell phone, a persistent white noise that ebbed and flowed like ocean tides. Probably just interference from the new cell tower, Sister Agnes suggested, though her eyes betrayed her uncertainty. At 87, she was the oldest remaining connection to St. Ignatius's origins. This place has always been sensitive to change. I nodded, though the explanation felt hollow. The static had a pattern to it. 3 long bursts, too short, then silence for exactly 40 seconds before repeating. Too precise to be random interference. That night, I dreamed of a vast, dark sea beneath a starless sky. From the depths rose a cathedral of impossible geometry, its spires twisting in ways that hurt to perceive. At its pinnacle, a light pulsed. 3 long flashes, too short. I woke to find myself standing before the monastery's ancient radio equipment in the basement, equipment that had been decommissioned decades ago. My hands were bloody from removing the rusted screws of its protective casing. The radio was on, emitting that same static pattern. 3 long, too short. A signal. I whispered to the darkness. It's a signal. Father McKenna arrived following day. With his crisp black clothing and perpetual frown, he seemed out of place among the retreat's casual atmosphere of spiritual discovery. The diocese sent me to check on things, he explained, though I hadn't asked. There have been concerns. About what? He studied me for a moment too long. About increased electrical activity in the area. About reports of unusual dreams among visitors. About you, Miss Chambers. My blood ran cold. Me. Your predecessor kept meticulous logs of maintenance and unusual occurrences. You filed nothing in 3 weeks. I've been busy with the summer programs, I lied. In truth, I'd been spending my nights in the basement, listening to the static, trying to decipher its meaning. I'd filled 5 notebooks with patterns and possibilities, but nothing I wanted the church to see. Father McKenna's eyes narrowed. The basement has been off limits since 1976. I trust you've respected that directive. I nodded, the lie burning my throat. Good. Some places are sealed for a reason, Miss Chambers. Some prayers are better left unanswered. That night, the dream returned, but different. The cathedral rose as before, but now I could see thousands of figures circling its base, their movements synchronized in worship. Above, the pulsing light grew brighter with each flash, illuminating a vast shape behind the cathedral, something that made my dreaming mind recoil in primal terror. I woke in the basement again, but this time I wasn't alone. Sister Agnes sat in the corner, her roomy eyes fixed on the ancient radio. You hear it too, she whispered, not a question. What is it? I asked. A beacon, a prayer, a warning. Her gnarled hands twisted in her lap. In 1976, before your time, God answered our prayers in a way we never expected. What happened in 1976? We asked for a sign of His presence, for proof we weren't alone in the universe. A single tear tracked down her wrinkled cheek. We should have been more specific about which God we were calling to. The next morning, Father McKenna was gone, leaving only a note. Emergency at the diocese. Lock the basement. Touch nothing. Sister Agnes refused to elaborate on her cryptic statements, suddenly claiming memory problems and confusion. But that evening, I found a small key slipped under my door with a note in trembling handwriting. South Library. 3rd bookshelf. Red leather binding. The monastery's library was vast and rarely used, preference having shifted to the retreat center's more modern facilities. The book was exactly where described. A journal bound in cracked red leather, its pages yellowed with age. Inside, in precise handwriting, was an account that chilled me to my core. In 1976, a group of priests and nuns at St. Ignatius had conducted an experiment. Inspired by Vatican II's more progressive approach to faith and science coexisting, they had converted radio equipment into something they called a divine frequency scanner, designed to detect patterns that might represent communication from God. For months, they heard nothing. Then, during a powerful electrical storm, the equipment detected a signal from what they believed was the resonant frequency of divine presence. 3 long pulses, too short. They responded with the same pattern, amplified through equipment that should never have had that kind of range. Something answered. The journal ended abruptly with a single sentence. God has heard us, but it is not our God that responds. The official record showed the fire had damaged the basement that same night. 3 priests died. The basement was sealed, the experiment classified and buried in church records. Until now, until the signal returned. That night, for the first time, I answered the signal. I'm still not sure why I did it. Scientific curiosity, spiritual longing, or something darker, a compulsion not entirely my own. The equipment was surprisingly simple to operate once I referenced the journal's diagrams. 3 long pulses, too short. The response was immediate. The static changed, becoming more complex, almost melodic. Images flooded my mind. The cathedral again, but now I was inside it, moving through impossible spaces where gravity seemed optional and angles connected in ways that violated Euclidean geometry. At its heart stood an altar of black stone, and upon it lay a book bound in material I refused to identify. The book opened of its own accord, pages turning by unseen hands, stopping on an image that seared itself into my consciousness. A being of light and geometry, beautiful and terrible, with eyes that saw through time itself. Words formed in my mind, not in English or any human language, but somehow I understood. We have waited. The connection is reestablished. Prepare the vessel. I woke screaming, my body burning with fever. My arms were covered in markings, intricate patterns that resembled circuit boards or ancient glyphs, rising from beneath my skin like embossed text. They pulsed with my heartbeat. 3 long, too short. Sister Agnes found me that morning, cradling my marked arms, rocking back and forth in the corner of my bedroom. It's happening again, she whispered, horror and awe mingling in her voice. You've been chosen as I was. But I was too old, too weak to complete the connection. She rolled up her sleeve to reveal similar markings, faded to silvery scars on her papery skin. What does it want? I gasped through the pain. What any god wants, she replied. Worship, sacrifice, a bridge between worlds. It's not God, I said. Sister Agnes smiled sadly. How would we know? We pray to what we cannot see, cannot touch, cannot truly know. We asked for proof of divine existence, and something answered. Something that has existed since before time. Something that creates and destroys on scales we cannot comprehend. Is that not the very definition of God? By evening, the markings had spread across my entire body. The pain had subsided, replaced by a humming energy that made the air around me crackle. Every electronic device in my presence malfunctioned, screens showing only static. 3 long bursts, too short. Father McKenna returned with 4 other priests. They came prepared with restraints, holy water, ancient texts. They called an exorcism. I called it fear. Whatever has marked you is not of God, Father McKenna insisted, his voice steady despite the terror in his eyes. It uses our longing for divine connection against us. And how would you know what is of God? I challenged, surprising myself with the dual timbre of my voice, mine, yet not entirely mine. You, who claim to speak for a deity you've never seen. At least I have proof of my God's existence. The markings on my skin began to glow, casting the room an ethereal light that pulsed in that now familiar pattern. 3 long, too short. Father McKenna began the rite of exorcism, his voice rising above the static that now emanated from my very skin. The other priests joined in, their voices harmonizing in ancient Latin phrases. Sister Agnes stood apart, tears streaming down her face, her own scars faintly luminescent in response to my brighter glow. Something was happening, the air between us thickening, reality itself seeming to fold and distort. Above me, the ceiling appeared to recede into infinite darkness. Below, the floor became transparent, revealing that vast dark sea from my dreams. And rising from it, the cathedral of impossible geometry, now clearly revealed as something far older than Christianity, older perhaps than humanity itself. Its spires reached toward me, reality thinning at their touch. "Stop," I gasped, suddenly terrified as understanding dawned. "It's not trying to come here. It's trying to pull us there." Father McKenna faltered, his eyes widening as he too saw what was forming beneath us. "My God, not yours," whispered a voice from Sister Agnes's direction. But when I turned, Sister Agnes was gone. In her place stood something wearing her shape, her features stretched into an ecstatic rictus, her eyes now just pools of light pulsing in that familiar pattern. The first vessel failed. The second will not. The bridge requires two anchors, one willing, one consecrated. The thing that had been Sister Agnes lurched toward Father McKenna, moving with impossible speed. Her fingers elongated into crystalline appendages that plunged into his chest before anyone could react. He didn't scream. There wasn't time. His body arched, suffused with the same light that filled Sister Agnes, that pulsed beneath my skin. 3 long, 2 short. The other priests fled, their courage breaking at the sight of such impossible horror. I couldn't blame them. I wanted to run too, but the markings on my skin bound me to this place, to this moment. Father McKenna's body rose into the air, suspended between floor and ceiling, or what had been floor and ceiling before reality began to warp. Sister Agnes's form dissolved into pure light, flowing into him. The cathedral below reached upward, its impossible architecture reconfiguring to form a perfect match to St. Ignatius's foundations. The bridge forms. The god rises. In that moment of perfect horror and transcendent wonder, I made my choice. Not for the entity that claimed godhood, nor for the church that feared what it couldn't understand. I chose humanity, flawed, doubting, hopeful humanity. I reached for the ancient radio equipment, still humming with power, and reversed the signal pattern that had started it all. 2 short, 3 long. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. The light within Father McKenna's suspended form sputtered and fractured. The cathedral below shuddered, its spires crumbling. A sound beyond hearing tore through the fabric of reality, part scream, part static, as the connection destabilized. You cannot unmake what has begun. The signal remains. Others will answer. Not through me. I gasped, slamming my marked hands onto the equipment, allowing the energy that had built within me to discharge completely. The resulting explosion should have killed me. Perhaps it did in some way. The basement collapsed inward, the equipment destroyed. Father McKenna's body fell, empty of both human consciousness and the entity that had tried to claim it. The markings on my skin burned away, taking layers of flesh with them, leaving scars that still pulse sometimes in the old pattern. But I survived, and in surviving, I made sure the signal stopped, or so I believed. 20 years have passed. St. Ignatius Retreat was officially closed due to structural damage. The official report cited a gas leak explosion. The church quietly relocated the few witnesses and buried the truth beneath bureaucracy and doubt. I built a new life, far from any church or religious institution. The scars faded to faint silver lines that I could hide beneath long sleeves. The dreams receded, becoming rare enough that I could pretend they were just trauma, not warnings. Until 3 days ago, when every electronic device in my home began emitting static. 3 long bursts, 2 short. The pattern is back, and with it, the dreams of that cathedral beneath the starless sea. But something has changed. The cathedral is no longer reaching up. It's already here. Last night, I drove past my old apartment building and saw lights in every window, pulsing in perfect synchronization. 3 long, 2 short. The residents stood in their doorways, staring skyward, their eyes reflective like polished mirrors. Some had markings beginning to form on their exposed skin. Cell towers across the city are amplifying the signal now. The news reports widespread service disruptions and unusual electrical phenomena. They blame solar flares, network overloads, infrastructure failure, anything but the truth. The old fear is back, but with it comes understanding. What we experienced at St. Ignatius wasn't evil, not exactly. Just utterly, completely alien. A form of existence so beyond our comprehension that contact with it warps our reality. It doesn't hate us. It simply exists on a plane where our survival is irrelevant. We sought proof of God's existence and found something that matched our definition and power, if not in benevolence or comprehension. Be careful what you pray for. I've gathered supplies, salt, iron filings, copper wire, signal jammers, anything that might disrupt the pattern long enough for me to reach the city's main broadcast tower. I don't know if I can stop what's coming, but I have to try. If you're reading this and the static has begun, remember, it's not our God that answers. And yet, paradoxically, my faith has never been stronger. Not in the entity that reaches through dimensions, but in the divine spark within humanity that gives us the courage to resist cosmic horror, to face the abyss and still choose compassion over transcendence. Perhaps that, in the end, is the true face of God, not the power that creates worlds, but the love that preserves them. The static is getting louder now. My scars are beginning to glow again. 3 long, 2 short. The signal calls. This time, I answer with prayer, not to the thing that waits beyond the veil, but to whatever force gave humanity the strength to stand against the dark. God help us all. Dear listener, thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. Make sure to subscribe to my channel. Many more terrifying, mysterious, and thrilling stories are coming soon. See you again very soon.